Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be in chapter 14, which deals with performance management. And the issues that we're going to be looking at is how can we properly motivate the employee to do what he or she is supposed to do, making sure that we maintain a balance between goals and technology and involvement. These are the things that we're going to be looking at this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back, everybody, and today we're in chapter 14, which deals with performance management. And there are a lot of philosophies, just as there are in leadership and change management. Performance management is another area that has really captured the attention of researchers. How do we increase performance? How do we get the right optimal amount of performance out of workers and maintain their motivation and satisfaction and fulfillment? So performance management deals with all of these things, and today that's what we're going to be taking a look at. As you see here, there's a performance management model, and it consists really of three entities. You have the business strategy, you have employee involvement, and you have workplace technology. All three of these things combined go into individual and group performance. The first, we have goal setting from a business standpoint, training and development, performance appraisals, then reward systems. And you want your performance appraisal, reward systems, goals, and training all to line up. There needs to be that consistency there and reliability so that you get the appropriate individual and group performance out of the worker. Now, when it comes to goal setting, let's take a look at that. How do we know that the goals that we have are appropriate for our strategy and they are within the capability of the worker? Well, first of all, the goals are challenging. And there's the caveat under that says goals are challenging but realistic. Now, especially when you get new people into the group or into the organization, you want to give them you want to give them challenging work, but you don't want to go and be so challenging as that it's really not attainable or realistic. I never will forget when I took over a recruiting region in the Gulf Coast area. I was thrown into the position. I wasn't really ready for it, but I was the first choice to go and take that region over. And I remember one of the executives said, Tom, we really don't expect you the first month or two to perform up to par with the more established regions. Just try your best and we'll go from there. Well, that was a challenge in and of itself. Now, some people would have gotten maybe discouraged, or they would have used that as an opportunity. Hey, I'm getting a free pass for a couple of months. But I didn't. The work was challenging for us to maintain recruiting productivity in that region, but we did it. And as we accomplished goals, I became more confident and more motivated. So too did the men that were under me. And we became one of the top performing stations in the country. And that's what setting out goals and attaining goals will do. Now, if I would have failed, then it wouldn't have been probably as motivating as winning in those or accomplishing goals in those objectives. But setting out challenging goals that are realistic, if they attain them, and they should, then you're going to increase their motivation. If you give them just some type of easy job, hey, just go ahead and do this, they'll probably feel good about attaining it, but there's no real sense of accomplishment there. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that you want to give them a sense of accomplishment so that it will boost and elevate their morale and motivation to go on to bigger and better things. Goals are set participatively. That means you're not just sitting down saying you need to do this, this, and this. You're sitting down with them and working it out, helping that person to realize their potential, but also working with them to set the goals. Now also goals have to be clear. They're specific and operationally defined. Don't tell a person just go out and do the best you can. They need to know that these are the specific goals of this organization, and this is how you can attain these goals by our operational standards. And then resources for goal achievement are negotiated. And as we saw in the last chapter, our goal now is really to be more of a coach. We're here now to equip them, to encourage them, and to mentor them. But really, today's managers are resource allocators. They're the people who facilitate the needs or the resources of whatever is needed for that operation or that objective to be met. So the goals have to be challenging, and the goals have to be clear. And that's how you effectively deal with goals when you're looking at managing performance. Now, again, here are some approaches, some basic definitions of goal setting that we use within the realm of goal setting. Management by objective. And this is where the employee develops and is supported by the managers. Now, the managers with MBO, and it's a fairly new concept. I say fairly new. It was around TQM and Deming and all of that. But management by objective means that you're not putting people necessarily on a clock. You're giving them objectives, and you evaluate their performance based on whether or not they met that objective. If they met that objective, that's what you want. If they didn't meet that objective, then you can go in and you can assess, was it something on the part of the person, or was there something that even though the person did the best he or she could, circumstances prevented them from being able to meet their objectives. Now, one of the key features of management by objective is that you are evaluating, you are setting milestones for accomplishments, and as those milestones are met, you move on to the next one. This way, if you are falling short of your objective, if you're not meeting those objectives, then you can stop at that point and evaluate what's going on instead of waiting to the end to find out, well, did the person reach their objective or did they fall short of it? So management by objective is taking away the practice of just clocking in and putting in hours. Now you're paying the person and evaluating that person based on their performance. The balanced scorecard is the technique of having goals at different organizational levels with clear link to business. The balanced scorecard takes a look at different dimensions within that person's realm. It could be customer satisfaction, it could be efficiency, productivity, whatever. The balanced scorecard doesn't really evaluate you on one dimension. It will take a look at several dimensions from a holistic standpoint, which is a complete standpoint on your performance and how you stack up with other individuals at that level of responsibility. Now, key performance indicators. These are establishing goal, difficulty, and level of participation. So, key performance indicators will determine how difficult the goal will be and how much involvement needs to be contributed to those objectives or goals that are being set out by the company. Now, you have a performance appraisal elements. From the traditional approach, it was just a check to mark off in HR. It was legal. It was from an organizational standpoint, fragmented. Many people didn't even get an evaluation or an appraisal until maybe once a year, and that was just to get over the legal aspect of performance appraisals. Today, With an involved organization, you see that it's developmental, and we've talked about that with the learning organization. You want to be able to bring that person up into that organization, so you're developing them. It's also integrated. It's more in line with the company's identity, values, objectives, goals, mission, vision, all of that stuff. Now, from the appraiser standpoint, it used to be the supervisor or the manager, and if you've ever been under that appraisal system, and you may be under it now, if they liked you, you did well. If they didn't like you, then you were under more scrutiny. So we've kind of changed that to where now you have coworkers and other people evaluating you. In fact, there's the practice of 360-degree feedback, where you evaluate yourself, your coworkers evaluate you, your customers evaluate you, your supervisor, and even those who may be under you can evaluate you. So you get every perspective of appraisal using this type of method. And that's what we want, because it's not left up to one person's liking or disliking you. You get more of an objective appraisal. And then the role of the appraisee is to be just a passive recipient. You signed the form and you were on your way. Now you're an active participant, especially when you're evaluating yourself. Where are your weaknesses? What do you see should be room for improvement for your performance and whatever? So you're more active now than you were with the old system. And the measurement was subjective, and it was concerned with validity. Is your appraisal measuring what it should be measuring? Today, we can say that our appraisals are more objective, and there is that subjectivity to it, a person's estimation of you, but you also have the element of objectivity where you're either meeting your company's goals or you're not, and nobody can argue with that. Then timing was fixed, it was periodic, maybe once a month, maybe twice a year, once a year and maybe twice a year. Those were the two common approaches. Now it's dynamic, timely. It can be employee or work driven. You're constantly being evaluated and appraised. And praise is another thing that we oftentimes overlook. Oftentimes the manager or supervisor will call you in, and it's usually to chew you out because you didn't do something right. Today, we're concerned just as much with calling you in to praise you. Hey, that was a good job. Or, hey, we appreciate the advancements that you're making towards your development and so forth. So it's good to praise them as well as reprimand them should the occasion arise. Now, the application stages, select the appropriate stakeholders. Those are the ones that have a vested interest in that individual or individuals. Diagnose the situation, what's going on, establish the system's purposes and objectives, design the performance appraisal system. Now, when we design the system, it needs to go towards the development and the betterment of those employees. It shouldn't be just an HR function. Well, we've got to do this because HR says we have to do it, and legally we're bound to do that, so that if we fire somebody, then we have some paperwork to back it up. You know, I was asked one time to dismiss a person by writing their evaluation, their appraisal, in a way that we could get rid of that person if we wanted to. And that person was a good worker, but several people didn't like her up the executive levels, and they wanted to find out or figure out a way to get rid of this person without the evidence pointing back to them. So let's just use me to do the dirty work for them. So you have to be careful and don't take these things lightly, because your appraisals can determine whether or not you get raises, whether or not you're going to be retained in that company and so forth. So take them seriously. Experiment with implementation. Your system system may not be exactly where it needs to be, so you may have to tweak it, and evaluate and monitor the system. Are you getting valid results from it. Now, the reward system design features, and these are just definitions that you'll need to know: person versus job-based, person job-based versus performance-based. And are you looking at the person, or are you taking a look at the work? Market position, and that's the relationship between what an organization pays and what other organizations pay, and that's equity. And if you've taken me for leadership or organizational behavior, equity theory comes into play. If people perceive that they're not getting what others are getting for the same amount of work, they're going to leave you. Or at least at the very least, their motivation will be squelched. Internal equity, and that's the extent to which people are doing similar work within the organization and they're being rewarded the same. Hierarchy is the extent to which people in higher positions get more and varied rewards, and we still have that ongoing debate on whether or not executives or people higher up, is it fair to pay them the amount of money that they're getting based or in relation to how much the lower end workers are getting paid. Centralization, and that's the extent to which our reward systems are standardized. Is it the same system throughout the organization? It should be, especially when you're looking at the legal end of compensation and benefits. Rewards mix, and that's the extent to which different types of rewards are available. Everything that you have, we call it the compensation package, but your benefits, bonuses, pay, all of that stuff goes into your rewards mix. Security, that's the extent to which the work is guaranteed, and seniority, and that's the extent to which rewards are based on length of service. And normally we equate that with what we call merit pay. And merit pay you have for however many years you are with the company. You get incremental pay increases automatically. For every, let's say, 2 years that you're with the company, you get a raise outside any other raises that you may get or bonuses. The only thing that you have to do is just not get in trouble and keep your job, and you get a pay raise. Many people say that security helps motivate people, but others argue as well that if you know you're going to get a raise no matter what, then why should I work harder for something that I know I'm going to get anyway? So you have divided camps along those lines. And then you have, as I mentioned earlier, in the reward mix, you have pay systems, which is based on skill. This is why some people get paid more than others. A PhD in a college will command more pay than let's say, for instance, a maintenance worker. But depending on how long that maintenance worker is there, you may see that their pay is quite similar. Then you have performance-based pay systems, which is linking pay to performance. Gain sharing programs, and gain sharing means that if you save the company money or increase the amount of revenue that company has brought in for that year, then you share in the gains. If it's a matter of saving the company money, then you get to share in the savings. They pay you whatever they saved. So that's an incentive to figure out better ways and more efficient ways of doing business. Promotions are another type of reward system where you move up. And then benefits, which is based on your really your choice today. But benefits are offered to most every organization that can afford benefits. Benefits are not required of the company to provide to you. Benefits are something that it's like the hygiene factors that we saw. If they're not there, chances are you're not going to work there. Benefits came about because of the unions back in World War II. Unions were not able to command higher wages for the workers because of price freezes that had occurred, wage freezes that occurred during the war. So the unions developed the idea of starting to argue now with organizations to provide benefits. So you can thank the unions for your benefits today. But benefits have evolved now to where they constitute a substantial portion of your total reward system. So much so that, again, even though they're not required to be offered by the company, if a company doesn't offer them, then chances are they're not going to be able to attract quality employees. We looked at some of the fundamentals of performance management, which takes a look at performance appraisals. We also looked at goal setting and how our goals should be challenging, but they should be realistic, and how those goals should be stated. They should be clear, and it should fall in the lines of the operational objectives and so forth. So hopefully we've gained some more insight into how to motivate the worker to help manage better their performance, and how we can appropriately assess and appraise their performance. Well, that's all we have for today. Tomorrow we'll begin with Chapter 15.